Well, hello everyone. I'm really excited and I'm also proud to be here. Thanks for having me here. It's very special for me. Actually, we were asked, as you have already heard, if we had some wow moment in our careers. I actually had a number of wow moments. Very exciting ones, sad ones. But today it's actually a highlight wow, because I can be here. Now, why do I think it's a highlight wow? It's actually because I realized, while I always wanted to understand the living environment, I've become a role model. Wow. Now, did I ever plan to be a role model? No. If I had had a plan, could I just transfer this to you? I doubt it. But I learned about a concept which I think is really transferable. And this is the concept of the ikigai. And I think I did find my ikigai, and that's why I'm here today. So the ikigai, it's a Japanese concept, and in contrast to what you probably have heard many times, you should do what is your passion, this concept actually goes much beyond. Because what you should try to find is a combination of what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and last but not least, also what you can get paid for. And if you find this combination, you can go on a mission with passion, and you can do this in your profession and your vocation. And so I personally feel that that's where I am, and it's a very nice feeling. Now, on my journey, I actually learned a lot from trees, and particularly from my tree. And I would like to take you on this journey to explain you what I mean. Now, I grew actually up in Dresden, and you see this tiny little pond there where I spent many days because I just loved being there, not because of the trees. I was actually hunting tadpoles and catching water flea, so I was always interested in biology, and I think this really laid the ground for me to have a passion for biology. So I then went on to study biology. And you may think it's quite logical, if you study biology, of course you love trees. That's not what it is. I don't love trees for botanical reasons. Actually, if you would have the opportunity to look in one of my study books, I even failed one of my first botany exams, okay? So I look at the trees more for symbolic reasons. So when I did my PhD at the University of Waterloo in Canada, I read a lot of Canadian short stories because I wanted to know more about the culture. So I came across this really touching story of this Inuit woman who had never seen a tree in her life. Only when she had to be flown down to the south of Canada to get some treatment in a hospital did she see and touch trees. Now, what I took from this story is never take anything for granted. I mean, not even a tree. So what I try to do is, when I have a certain situation, I try to see first what I already have and, take it from the positive side before I explore what is missing and how I can close the link. After my PhD, I had the wonderful opportunity to build my first own research group. And it was a very exciting time, steep learning curves, but I would also say this was the most vulnerable time of my career. I sometimes didn't see the tree for the woods, okay? Plus, at the same time, we were actually raising 2 children. And, many of you would think, oh yeah, the additional stress of children. Well, I think this is really different, because it were the children who kept me on the ground, who helped me prioritize and sort of put things into perspective. And here I have another tree story. They were exactly this age when one of our neighbors came to me and said, Kristin, do you realize that Ansel and Richel, they sit behind the tree? They're very quiet. You better check. So I go there, and what I caught them doing is an experiment. And the experiment was to try to find out how it feels when you cut your rain jacket with scissors. So by the time I caught them, they were completely happy. They had accomplished their experimental task. Of course, I was not so happy. But what I took from this is, if you need to accomplish something, if you need to do something for yourself, it is actually okay to hide now and then, to just get this done and do something good for you. But I discovered my tree actually only when I came to Switzerland in 2008 to take on the departmental head position that I still hold. This is my tree. So every day when I walked to work or I came from work, I saw this tree from a distance. And I was actually really amazed by this tree. I'm like, how can a tree be so alone? And it must be extremely strong because, you know, it's all the wind and the rain. It's just hitting right on this tree. And I felt also a little bit like, you know, in the meetings that I sometimes go to where you have only men, and I'm like the single woman there. And so I thought, geez, you can be alone, but you can still be strong. And I told this to my husband. I said, you know, I love this tree. One day I would like to find which tree it is. And I will say that my husband and I, we know each other for a very long time. We met in high school, okay, and we are a team ever since, and I learned a lot from him. So one thing I learned from Mario, this is his name, is that you always have to really tell the world what is important to you and what you need and what your wishes are. Just don't expect that people can read it from your eyes, okay? So you have to really say this. So I told him about this tree, and he said, yeah, okay, that's interesting. And then, you know, months later, and I only learned in hindsight, he had actually explored days and days to find that tree. So one Sunday morning, he said, okay, family, let's go on an excursion. We found Mom's tree. So we went there, and here it is. So I realized two things immediately. First, of course, Mario couldn't find the tree because it's not a single tree. It's a tree in the trees, in the woods. And so it's also similar to what we sometimes experience. Like if you think you're doing such great work and, you know, people will see it and they will recognize you, well, you better think twice because you may just be hidden in the woods like my tree. But what I also thought is you can actually have, you know, like you're never alone, in fact. You always have people around you who may share the same interest, who have an interest in you, and who can help you. So my tree is by far not alone. So this reminded me of the person that is most inspiring to me for my career to this day, and this was, or is, my PhD supervisor. And so I thought about the features that make my supervisor, for me, the role model of a role model. And so I just would like to tell you these features. So first, when he is here, when he is with you, he is really with you, okay? So he listens, he's totally interested in what you do and what your ideas are, but he also guides you by asking really critical questions. And at the same time, he's very generous, plus he gets things done. And so these are the features that I'm actually trying to also convey with people that work with me. You have to ask them whether this is successful or not, all right? Now, coming back to my tree, again, my tree, very close up, but from a different perspective. And what I take from this is that you can stand out if you have a strong base, a strong support, and you can stand out to make a difference to yourself or also to others by having a broader view and having a view that helps you to find orientation or to give orientation to others. Thank you.